many politicians that you know of have ever said, "I don't know," to a reporter? Yeah?
Zero.
Oh, zero. Okay. I agree. I don't know if you're raising a fist at me or what. You know, I'm like, all right, I'll shut up now. You know.
They
Right.
just use different words. They didn't say, "I don't know."
Right. But I don't know is clear, direct, and whether you're a 10-year-old or a 100-year-old, you know what it means. A politician will say, "I don't know," and use 100 words, and you'll figure he is the most brilliant person in the world, the most well-informed on the issue. It's called spin, or as the shirts out there say, newspeak. Yeah.
North said, "I don't remember," but I don't think he really did remember.
I am so not going down that path. I'll hold court in the bar this evening if you want to discuss this. I'll be in a better frame of mind to discuss. But being honest, Microsoft is the master of spinning honesty. What are vulnerabilities called in Redmond? No, that's what, no, that's what we call them. They are called issues. Microsoft has discovered an issue in Internet Explorer version 6.01 that could affect blah, 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 blah. Well, an issue doesn't sound as bad as a major problem. Ergo, people will be, "Oh, that's interesting. What's on TV?" Right? They spin it. They're not being open and honest directly with the end users, with the people, with the community. What you see here is just the rest of this list is a laundry list of some of the challenges that we're facing right now in the security community with regards to information sharing. I'm not going to go through them all. Who or what is the adversary? That ties to what I just said about the big banks, small banks. You know, you want to include all the relevant parties, but exclude the bad guys. Well, if you're a small bank and you can't play with the big guys, does that mean you're a friendly adversary? Because you're not, you know, sitting at the big kids' table? We don't know. We're seeing a hard look at what's called friendly strangers. A lot of people here are friendly strangers. I see several people here once, maybe twice a year, if that. See them on LiveJournal, see them on email or IRC, but friendly strangers. I trust some of them. Hopefully they trust me. But I don't know them as well as I would know my girlfriend or close friends. But yet I trust them more than I trust somebody outside. Okay, and there are different degrees of trust, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Talk about accountability. And again, these are issues that I will be touching on. But how do we hold accountability for somebody who provides bad information or dubious or misleading information into an information exchange system? Bad intelligence. We saw this last week with the CIA report that came out that says, "Oh, we really screwed up on the intelligence for Iraq." Oops. It was 401 pages that said, "Oops." How can we hold people accountable for that sort of material? I don't think, no one's been fired yet. No one probably will get fired yet. One of the joys of running email lists, and I've been running one for supporting the DoD and the intelligence community for the past 8 years now, pretty high volume, is that everybody posts under their name or a known name. Meaning that if I get an email sent to this list from William Knowles, I know William Knowles. I've got a level of knowledge and competence that I can authenticate him and at least substantiate the information he's providing. So if there's a complaint from somebody else that, "Oh, what's he saying?" I can say, "No, I know him, he's got good sources, so be it." But if it's, you know, joker22@hotmail.com, well, that could be anybody. It could be William Knowles, it could be my alter ego when I'm drunk, it could be anybody. How do you verify that? How do you hold that person accountable for that information? We don't know. I love these mailing lists where you see people, and hacker handles I've finally come to accept. So I've got several friends who do have hacker handles, and I call them that instead of their real name. Problem. I can always count on him to be a source of amusement in my speeches, always. Whether it's New York, Cleveland, or Detroit. You're like my number one groupie. You get a cookie. Okay. So, you know, other issues we have is that, you know, we need to have a way where if we're sharing all this information, that no single user can compromise the system in general, cannot compromise security. I think back to information sharing in the old intelligence community. Some of these names may sound familiar. Aldrich Ames, Nicholson, Robert Aldrich. Others go back in time, 20, 30 years. One person was able to compromise huge amounts of intelligence and information and hack the system, if you will, from the inside. They were a friendly adversary. They were in under the radar. How could they do this? Because once they were in, who here saw The Recruit, the movie? Al Pacino, what's her name, Bridget Moynihan, I think, whatever. There's a great line in there, and it's kind of true, even though it was done in Hollywood style. Al Pacino's talking to, who's the guy, the lead guy? Colin Farrell. And he says, when you get into CIA headquarters, once you're in the gate, you're in. It's one giant village. You can go anywhere. Their whole idea is to keep people out. For better or worse, there's some logic in that. And that's not really how it works, but the idea is that once you're in, as we all know, you're the insider. And you can do some really nice damage if you wanted to. So there's a concern about how do we prevent that, or at the very least, minimize or mitigate the damage. All too often, the response to this challenge is to just flat out close the door. And in that case, you're not mitigating the damage, you're trying to eliminate it flat out. And there may be a lot of good that you're cutting off because you're slamming the door as opposed to looking for other solutions. The bottom line is these challenges and others that are not listed here, chances are handled one of two ways. Either through the application of technology, be it encryption, trusted networks, VPNs, passwords, or heavy-handed policies, laws, and regulations that make it very cumbersome to use that information or exchange it when you need it. One of the hardest problems in the intelligence community is having information and getting it to the right people at the right time so they can use it when they need it. I've got a good friend of mine who's serving in Iraq right now. He's a Marine gunnery sergeant. And he says he'd rather have something that's 80% reliable that he can use right now and give it to you and you and you and go out and do a mission than get something that's 100% reliable, requires a safe and 3 armed guards because it's so classified. That extra security hinders his ability to do his job. Take that analogy and put it in the context of emergency services, post 9/11. If I can get information that's pretty darn reliable and corroborated from a couple of different sources, get it out in the field fast to police, fire, whoever, and they can save lives as a result. Isn't that better than the opposite, which would be adding layers of cumbersome security, other controls that means that it might take 3 hours as opposed to 3 seconds for something that will occur and be exchanged, whether it's voice, video, or data? I'd say err on the side of helping somebody. One good example of where we're headed. They said there are the 3 schools of vulnerability disclosure: full disclosure, zero disclosure, and responsible. This is the trend that we're seeing about moving towards a policy of zero disclosure. I'll just give you a second to kind of skim through it. This is taken from the Homeland Security Act of 2002, when the DHS was stood up. A little section buried deep in the legislation. Some of this is a little interesting from not just a security perspective, but just a citizen's concern about his government perspective. What they're really saying here is, in the first case, is that the government, in this case Homeland Security, wants to receive information from, let's say, backbone providers, software vendors, chemical plant companies. Give us this information so we can better assess your level of risk to a terrorist attack or an emergency. We, as the government, cannot publish that information without your permission. On one hand, this makes sense. If you're going to air your dirty laundry out, you don't want it being aired out to the world. But what if the government finds information there that presents a public health hazard or a danger to public safety or public cyber safety? Should they be able to release it to the world? Ideally, I would say yes. The law says they can't. They have to tailor it and wash it down and water it down first. Once the information is in government hands, and this is the best one, the second bullet, if a chemical plant has an accident and people suspect that it could have been prevented by better security or better safety or inspections, and somebody sues the chemical company or the government, why didn't you do something? The information that chemical company gave the government cannot be used in court. This is a broad indemnification under the guise of keeping critical information away from terrorists. Think back to Enron and WorldCom. What we're seeing here is terrorism and security, public safety, being used as a way to also kind of shoehorn in some good things for the corporations to escape accountability from their shareholders and the public. Yes, sir?
Do you see these provisions more in the context of the government releasing information about the companies, or more in the public requesting information from the government about the companies?
The latter. The government traditionally does not, and that goes back to the issue of cybersecurity and computer crime investigations in the 80s and 90s. People wouldn't go to the FBI because they were afraid that their vulnerabilities would come out in the court. So the government doesn't really do that. But this is if I sue my local power plant and it goes to court, and there's hints that there are damaging evidence or damaging reports that the government has on them, I can't get those reports to help my case out.
Yeah, but you can still use traditional disclosure and
No.
go after
No.
the power company.
No, because the power company, which I didn't include on here actually, would under the new revised laws, says that if they deem it to be critical, I forget what the designation, critical infrastructure information, they are exempt from giving it to anybody under any circumstances.
But nobody would ever abuse it, would they?
Not at all. Not at all. Now, let's keep in mind, and the other is self-explanatory, the federal law overrides any state or local Freedom of Information Acts. So this standardizes this disclosure position. What is interesting is, I think it was on Slashdot last week or 2 weeks ago, it was a rehash of a story that I've heard repeatedly since 9/11. The use of the government has said to private pilots, you cannot fly around nuclear power plants, chemical plants, whatever. Makes sense. I kind of agree with that. Having been a pilot, I steered clear of those things. But they say you cannot fly near these, but we can't tell you where these areas are. The blind leading the blind. I don't even know where to begin. But this is the logic that we're seeing, where we consider something so sensitive. Now, who here lives near a nuclear power plant? Which one, sir? Which one? Bessie. Bessie? Okay. If you wanted to find Bessie power plant, how would you go look for it? You're a terrorist.
Just go look.
Just go to the
You can look over the horizon.
But terrorists don't have eyes. They wouldn't look around for things, would they?
Anyway, you wouldn't need a terrorist. First energy would probably blow it up first.
Okay, but terrorists won't go like driving around looking for a power plant or plumes, would they? That's just too, that's so low tech. Would a terrorist go to a 7-Eleven and purchase a map,
Yeah.
a road map? And maybe they would go driving around and see, okay, there's a power plant there, but I don't see it on the map. I guess it doesn't exist. I don't think so. You see where this is going. Phone books, the list goes on. This sort of convoluted logic presents the illusion that we are controlling information and therefore strengthening our security, when we're not. We're doing the exact opposite and having a damn good laugh at the same time. There are other examples of that. Last year, there was a Homeland Security regulation or request for comment that came out. And it simply, and I'll read it for you because it's kind of small print. This is talking about cellular phone network outages. While this information is critical to identify and mitigate vulnerabilities in the system, it can equally be employed by hostile actors to identify vulnerabilities for the purpose of exploiting them. Depending on the disruption in question, the errant disclosure to an adversary of this information concerning even a single event may present a grave risk to the infrastructure. This was in response to, I think it was Singular. There was a major Singular outage in Texas. It was last fall, I think. And people wanted to know why their cell phones weren't working. Singular posted there were outages in these areas. Government said, oh my God, that could be used by a terrorist.